All right, it is 6:30. We will call the Monday, March 24, 2025 City of Mayor City Council meeting to order. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And do we have any additions to the agenda tonight?
I don't have any additions, Mayor.
Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And with that, we will move to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to discuss anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. And if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Mark Enlow. I am from St. Louis Park, but my address is 4721 Valacher Avenue in St. Louis Park for right now. I am the new owner of the creamery right next door. I just wanted to come and introduce myself, give a face to the name. I've worked a little bit with Nick so far and had some discussions with Mike, and will continue to do so as this process moves forward. I would imagine Philip and I will have some discussions as well. I will keep everyone in the loop and kind of follow the protocols per a discussion that Nick and I had earlier today. But the other element of this is that I will be just joining the community as well. I will be a mayor resident. I will be marrying one of your residents come June of this year. So I will be around, and I will have all of my contact info will be available at the appropriate times. So just want to say hi.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, anything you need, let us know. Keep in touch with Nick and any council members, and we look forward to seeing your project come along. When we can, it'd be great to see some timelines maybe, or see what's, the plans with the building, only because we did have some safety concerns in the last couple of years about some of the, the overhang there, not safe, making sure people aren't getting, so if you can just kind of keep Nick in the loop.
All the way.
Perfect. Great. Well, welcome to the community, and congratulations on upcoming nuptials in June. You bet. So with that, we will move to consent. Is there anything on the consent agenda that needs to be pulled for further discussion? My only question, Nick, with the two closures, I'm not so concerned with the car shows, as vehicles obviously have to get in and out, and they can manage that as they have been. For the Zion closing, would we have some barriers available to bring out there for them to use instead of cones?
Yep.
Similar to what we do for Mayor Rising Community Festival.
Yep, we'll get some of those out there.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Hearing nothing else, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, we will move to the 2024 audit from Abdo. So Nick, if you want to say some or introductions.
I'd like to welcome Bonnie back. She has been our auditor for quite a few years here, and thank you for making the journey to give the presentations. You can just give me the nods whenever you want slides to change.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So yes, my name is Bonnie Schwiger. I'm going to go through the results of the 2024 audit with you. If you have questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to stop me. We can touch on things as they come up. I do want to do a quick disclosure. We do have the audit report in draft form right now. One thing we're waiting on is information from the state fire pension plan. They released some of their final disclosures in April. And so we expect to receive those in the next couple of weeks, but nothing else in the report will change from what we go over tonight to updating some of just the pension disclosures within the report. So we'll finalize it at that time. All right, so I'll start with going over our audit opinion and some of the different control results that we have within the audit. Then we'll touch on some of the financial information. And so we do include two different letters within the financial statements. One is the independent auditor's report, and this is required by state statute and also provides an opinion over your financial statements. We do provide a clean or an unmodified opinion consistent with what you've received in the past, noting that we did not have any significant issues during the audit. So clean audit overall. Also, we issue a compliance letter over Minnesota statutes and no issues there either. So you have to comply with a lot of different Minnesota state statutes as a city, and we didn't find any discrepancies during our audit. So really good year from a compliance aspect. And then next we have two internal control report findings that we include in the report. These are nothing new to the city. They've been in the report every year, and they're really a result of some of the limited number of staff within the city. It's not always feasible to have a perfect control environment, and so during the audit, we do feel it's necessary to report some additional risk because you don't have as robust of a staff as you need to separate out your control responsibilities. Again, nothing to be overly concerned about. They've been in the report before, and just to be aware that, you know, because you only have a few people working in the office, your responsibilities on the council are just that much more important to approve checks and approve transactions and keep an eye on what's going on. So
pretty common. We've seen obviously year after year.
yes.
Is there a kind of a cutoff point number of staff we would get to where some of these would maybe start falling off? I mean, are we talking
Yeah.
another 15, 20 years down the road, or
Yeah,
is it another employee?
it would really be, that's a super great question. So whenever you can completely segregate the processes of, you know, someone doing the work and then someone reviewing and reconciling the work. So let's say that you had someone in the office who would do all of like the posting of the transactions, and then someone else who would reconcile all of those things, and then someone else who would approve. I mean, you're not that far off from it, but it's the time that it takes too. So Alicia, when she does utility billing, you would have to have a whole nother staff person to go through that. And then on top of that, also have Nick look and review and approve as well. Yeah. So 15 years, yeah,
We got
once you
time.
grow.
We got
So-
time, right? Yeah. Goals.
Yes.
Goals, right?
Right, exactly. I think from what we see during the audit, the city takes it very seriously,
Mhm.
the approval process and reviewing and making sure that, you know, things are done appropriately. So that's great to see. We don't see anything going outside of the normal process.
Good. Yep. And I'd agree with that. Thank you.
Yes. So here's a look at your general fund. I'm going to talk about all of your different city funds, but we'll start with the operating funds of the city. So it's important to keep a healthy fund balance within your general fund reserves. And your policy is to keep at least 50%. So this year you are above that policy. You jumped up to about 85% of your next year's budget. And then if we go to the next slide, you can see a couple of reasons for that. So you had budgeted for about a little over $1 million in revenues, and you collected about 1.3. A couple of big reasons for that. You got a few more things coming in from permit revenue than what you had budgeted. You always budget really conservatively there. And then also you collected some back tenant or antenna lease revenue that had been owed to the city. And so this year it was collected. And so that was about, I want to say almost 150,000 of that variance. So just kind of an odd year looking at the revenue, some one-time revenues that came in there. So you were able to grow your general fund balance this year. Expenses came in really close to what you had budgeted. And then next is a look at your general fund revenue. So you can see how things come in from taxes, permits, and then that other category includes different interest revenue, some grant revenue that comes in there. The overall tax revenue did go down this year. You can see that the charges for services went up. That's where some of that antenna lease revenue came in. And then next is look at your general fund spending by department. So you can see here that the different departments now, they vary from year to year. Public safety, there was just some one-time costs in 2023, so that went down to a little bit closer to normal, which you would expect. The capital outlay varies depending on your needs, equipment purchases, things like that. And then here's two of your other funds. So separate from your general fund, you have these smaller funds, development purposes, and then also just some very basic small activity for the fire department contributions there. So you can see these funds are all restricted for these two purposes. And then next is your capital project funds. And so you do have separate capital project funds that account for some of your larger street and equipment needs. And here's the balances at the end. And you can see that the park improvements does have a negative balance at the end of 2024, but that's planned for. It's going to be funded with some grants and other transfers, contributions that are expected in the future. So nothing to be concerned about there. The Sidewalk Trail Improvement Fund is new this year. So that's a new fund that was created to fund some future projects. And then here's a look at your debt service funds. And you can see what you have currently outstanding, as well as a look at your next few years of principal and interest. And so it's helpful to think about what you have falling off soon. You can see that all of your bonds are staying relatively consistent through 2033. And so you can see from the maturity dates here, you have a couple that mature in 2026, but your debt service payments are really stacked really nicely so that you don't have any big jumps within your debt service levy. And then we're going to look at a couple of your utility funds. So the water fund, the charges did go down in 2024. We're seeing this across really all of the cities that we're working with. The water usage was just so much lower than what it had been the last couple of years. And so water revenues did decrease from 2023, and you can see the cost went up just a little bit. So there was a decrease within that cash balance, but still over our basic minimum target where we have 50% recommended plus next year's debt service. That gives you a good cash balance cushion against anything that might come up. And then next is your water fund. Sewer fund. So the sewer fund charges decreased a little bit, not as much as what was impacted through the water, since that's based on, a little bit more seasonal usage. You can see that the 2024 disbursements did increase pretty significantly due to some engineering costs, preliminary design for the treatment facility. And so there was some pre-work on that isn't funded yet by any grants or loans or anything. So you can see some big one-time costs there. And then here's the stormwater fund, just a little bit of activity that flows through here. Not a lot going on in that fund, but a good cash balance being built up for any future capital needs that might be needed. And then we have a total chart that lays out your total cash balances for the whole city. You can see it's just broken out into these different buckets. Really important to think about, the cash that you have as separated for different types of costs that you need to pay for. And then just a couple of performance ratios, we call them. So we gather some information from the state auditor's office for the last couple of years. We don't have 2023 yet, but I've added 2022 new from this year that we didn't have last year. So you can see here averages for class 4 cities, which is cities up to 10,000 in population, and then also cities within Carver County, and how you guys compare as far as tax rate, and then also taxes per capita. So you can see you're fairly comparable with your tax rate there, and then also the taxes per capita on a little bit of the lower side. And then on the next slide is some just spending comparison. So this is looking at non-utility spending on a per capita basis. So it can be interesting to think about what services do we offer, what programs, what capital are we doing on a per capita basis, and how does that compare to our neighboring cities and also cities that are similar in size. Remember that class 4 cities is a really wide range, going up to 10,000 in population. So it captures a lot of cities within there. That gives you a little bit of a picture of what you're spending. And then we have our contact information here. These were the members of your audit team this year. We would love to hear from you at any time. If you ever have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. Any questions that I can take right now?
Any questions? I don't think I have any at this time either, so
Okay.
Looking good.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
I appreciate the partnership with Abdo, everything your team did for taking care of this 2024 audit for us.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
If I may make one
Thank
quick
you.
comment. We did have the pleasure of having them out for field work, but it was only 2 days we had you guys out this year instead of the 3.5 as normal. And I would like to give special credit to Alicia and Tracy for making that possible. They did excellent work in preparation of the audit, making sure we had files uploaded to the portal, making sure everything was good and in order. So kudos to both of them.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, I would concur with that. Yes, you both do a great job. And you too, Nick, you deserve some credit too. So, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. So with that, Nick, if, do we still approve this even though they're waiting on some of that pension number? Should we still approve it?
Yes, we still approve it. The pension information doesn't change our books at all.
Right.
It's just what
Okay.
gets reported in the audit, and they'll just update that. It doesn't change any of our numbers
Okay,
whatsoever.
perfect, thank you. With that, then I'll look for a motion to approve the 2024 audit performed by Abdo.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? So just a comment, kind of Nick, to your point there, I want to thank all staff for this, for us to get through another audit. Obviously, these two findings we have every year, but we didn't have any additional ones, which was nice, and certainly no reoccurring that we've seen in the past too. So again, thank you to you, Alicia and Tracy, for that, for all your work and your diligence throughout the year to make sure everything lined up. It's very, very impressive.
Those two findings that we get, I can tell you, when I worked for Fairfax, when I worked for Canby as fellow small towns, got those every single year.
Yep.
So it's a recurring thing.
And we'll continue and we just accept it, accept what we have with it. And like I said, I think we've made additional steps as much as we can internally just to make sure we got the checks and balances there.
And
We just have so much we can work with.
a little extra shout out to Tracy. So at the end of the audit, what we get as staff, we get adjusting journal entries that we put into the books because they go through everything and say, you got to tweak this, tweak this, tweak this. And in years past, it was upper 20s, low 30s, the number of adjusting journal entries. And this past one was 23. So it was a marked decrease.
Wonderful.
And that's to Tracy's good credit for getting everything in order.
That's wonderful. All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve. Or no, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. That we will move to consider approval of lump sum contributions to SVF Para Fund.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see if I can get to it here. There we go. A little off kilter. So we saw that when we saw in the slideshow there, our surplus in the general fund had jumped up from the 60% up to the 85. And now we go ahead and recommend approval. We drain that back down. But this is something we had talked about before. If we recall, back in 2022, the State Board of Investment lost. They didn't perform all that well in their investments, and us, our fire department being in the statewide volunteer firefighter plan as part of PARA, we took a hit in that. And that's where we started to have to make annual contributions, partial sums of the total. And we had talked at the time, as we were looking at the end of the year, we figured there was going to be a surplus that was going to be able to cover, but we wanted to really wait until we got the final audit numbers to make sure that was actually realized. We have the audit, the amount is realized. The total amount we owed, if we were to bring the PARA account to balance to 100% funded, was $218,808. And our audit report came in at $287,689 revenues over expenditures. So what my recommendation is, since now that it's confirmed, we go ahead and approve having a one-time lump sum contribution to our para fund to bring it to fully funded. Then we would no longer have those line items in our budget that I have to partially pay that. So it brings it to balance there.
Perfect. Any questions? Excuse me. Hearing none, then I'll look for a motion to approve a one-time lump sum contribution of $218,808 to the PARA statewide volunteer firefighters plan.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? And this gets us caught up then, right?
Yep.
We'll be.
So we won't owe in that line item.
done. Yeah.
How many years would we have been paying if we didn't do this?
An additional 7 or 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds about right.
Ish, depending on how well the State Board of Investment performed.
Okay.
All right, hearing nothing, hearing no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And with that, we will move to consider adoption of resolution adjusting fire department wages.
Thank you, Mayor. The Personnel Committee met to discuss the fire department wages. We had good Chief Metzel join us for those discussions, bringing in some great information and insight onto the operations of the fire department. And as we went through it, a couple of the goals we initially set out with is we wanted to implement some sort of system that saw regular improvements to the hourly wage when we looked at the firefighters. And then we also wanted to look at the officer pay as part of that. As we went through this process, we also ended up including another recommendation on there related to how training and training times are handled. So at the conclusion, we're recommending that the fire department hourly pay go from $12 an hour to $12.25 for payroll 2025 for this year. And then each year thereafter, so in 2026 and every year thereafter, it would increase by 25 cents per hour. So 2026, $12.50, $12.75, and so on. So that would get included. And then when it came to the training, we discussed when our firefighters go for their trainings, which could last 2 to 4-ish hours, about 3 on average is what was reported. They only get meeting pay, which is $15 for attending those. And that's how it's been set up. So one of the things to help adjust is we're recommending doing away with meeting pay for the trainings and switching to hourly pay. So they will track those and the amount of time they actually have, they'll get paid out for attending those trainings. So that will help on that end of things. And then we did take a look at the officer positions, and after a lot of evaluation and data collection, came up with the recommendations we see here. Any additions or improvements upon that, Mayor Chad?
No, I think you covered it. It's like you said, the personnel committee took a lot of time going through this. We collected a lot of information from other communities. And again, we didn't want to be necessarily dollar for dollar what every other community was doing, as this is a little bit different than a paid employee, but it was certainly useful. So Nick pulled all that, a lot of discussions, and we thought this was certainly a fair way to go and get us where we need to be. And we really liked increasing that every year. So we're coming up every 5, 6, 7 years. We also look at it and then try to jump ahead. This will give it a little more smooth from a budgeting standpoint and that. So, and then the officer pay, we felt this is certainly appropriate and needs to be up. It needed to be updated quite a bit. So there's some big jumps in there, but they were overdue, is what we thought at personnel. Chad, anything more? Does that pretty much cover?
Nope, pretty much covered it.
So if there's no other questions, I will look for a motion to approve resolution 2025-10.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? So again, Nick, thank you for your time on pulling all that data. Chief Metzel, thanks for attending the meeting and really helping us out understand some of these positions. We appreciate it. So with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. So with that, we will move to approval of fire department personnel policy update.
Thank you, Mayor. So as part of this update, now that we've got a regular in here, I'll try to get this all, kind of get split up. In the firefighter department personnel policy, there was not a section in there that addressed compensation for firefighters directly. So what the draft language I've put in here is so as firefighters come on, they get this policy and they have questions about the compensation. Before, there was nothing that spelled out how that works. So including this language in here, which spells all of that out according to what we just adopted.
So unless I hear questions, I'll look for a motion to approve the additions to the fire department personnel policy.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, we will move to approval to purchase replacement auto pulse for the fire department.
Thank you, Mayor. Our current auto pulse equipment is entering obsolescence. It's becoming very hard to find parts and get repairs for it. So it's about that time we're looking at replacement. And Fire Chief Metzold had brought together a couple quotes to look at that replacement. And I'll let Fire Chief Metzold go into a bit more detail on the quotes he received, as well as the proposed changeover from a Zoll to a Stryker device.
Perfect.
Sure. So currently we have an Auto Pulse, which I believe is around 16 years old. They are discontinuing that model. They will be, sounded like they're going to be servicing parts for another year or two, but then you'd no longer be able to get parts for it. So we looked into purchasing a new machine. Got a quote from Zoll Auto Pulse, same manufacturer as where our current machine is, which was $22,459. Then we also looked at Stryker Lucas tool, which is just another brand. The majority of the county and Ridgeview use the Stryker Lucas unit. So looking at it and talking with people from Ridgeview and stuff, makes most sense for us to go that route, because if when transporting a personnel, they will utilize because the ambulance service carries the same model on their ambulance. So we have a patient that we have the machine on and working, that we're working. They will, there's a back plate to the machine and then a top that goes over the top of the patient. They're easily able to snap off our machine, snap theirs on, just leave the back plate there. Can be a easy transition with no very limited downtime in doing that, for them to then transport the patient. And with having a different machine than Ridgeview has, it creates a lot more downtime to make that transition and stuff like that. And when asked, they said that they would probably not transfer a patient with that machine. They would want to switch it, and then that just creates more downtime, which isn't good for the patient. So we felt the Lucas tool was better and is also less expensive. So yeah, that would be our recommendation, to go with the Lucas.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Fire Chief Metzold? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve purchase for the replacement Auto Pulse, accepting the Stryker Lucas quote of $17,005.92.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, we will move to award of quote for Old Schoolhouse Park Trail Reconstruction Project.
Thank you, Mayor. So as part of, we'd like to call it the Splash Pad project, that's part of the DNR grant, but a component that's always been there is the reconstruction of the trails within Old Schoolhouse Park, aside from the segment that was recently done. And originally we had put in the grant application a cost of $80,300 for that. We received, the original quotes we received back for that was a cost overrun on the lowest amount. We had, well, 3 quotes came back, I should clarify. And the lowest of those was $109,235. We as staff got together with Phil here. We went over those and we asked, well, what could we do to help bring that down? There were some stormwater improvements that when we regraded the hill last year, that we took care of those. So those were pulled out of there. And then Public Works will also do the removals of the existing bituminous to help bring down those costs as well. So when you factor those in, the low quote comes in at $91,890. And that includes both portions. One thing we had looked at doing here is, zoom that out a little bit more. We bid it as an entire package, but we had this section up here as the base bid. So that included these trails here, as well as egg lime going to the bleachers, the dugouts, and all these areas. That's required by the grant for ADA purposes. Then we bid the west section as an alternate, just in case we had to really axe it to control costs. So this turned into about a little under 11,000 was the alternate on this. It was part of the 91 we just discussed. This was about 81 here for this segment up here. Brought it before Park Board to take a look at it. And the Park Board's recommendation is move forward with the whole project. As part of that, and the rationale was this section here is just as bad as the rest of the section here. And if you don't do it now, you're going to end up doing it in 3-ish years anyway, because it needs it. So whether you're spending city funds now or 3 years from now, you still have to do it. And the idea is if you do it here as part of this, that's wrapped in with the mobilization costs. So we're taking care of it.
It'd be more expensive.
And
3
just a
years
note,
later.
Yeah.
right on the top part of the green where it connects on the north side there, there's a big low area right there. So this would need to get fixed. That area would have had to get fixed anyway. We have standing water after any rain there that covers the entire trail. It's been an issue for numerous years, and we knew it was, and we were kind of waiting for this to get it. I know Public Works did a little work on it to try to mitigate, but it's a bad area right there.
Yeah.
Always standing water.
This area right here, we're not doing because this was done a handful of
Yep.
5-ish years ago,
If
something
that,
like
yeah.
that. So that's good. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be touched. One also afterthought from that I didn't bring up the Park Board is there's this segment right here that is not included. And originally this was left out because we had applied for the 80,300 as part of the grant. And originally I'd had this in there, but the DNR came back and said, this is not city-owned land, so we're not putting any state grant funds towards it. Made sense. So we pulled that out. To include this segment back in is $3,925. Why it's okay now versus then is this right up here, this base bid amount is covering the grant. City funds are going to 100% pay for this, which means the city funds are 100% paying for this, and it's not part of the grant. So I would recommend including the alternate on this, and then as well as adding this in so it's one continuous, because this section right here is just as bad as the rest.
What was that number?
3,925. And don't worry too much. I've got a spreadsheet for it.
Of course.
You got the bottom numbers or the total?
Yes. So to go over my spreadsheet, when we started tracking the project, this is for the CIP Park Fund as a whole. And we had multiple things going on. We had the pavilion project still going. We had the splash pad we're looking at, the trail, and the other things that they were doing. So I was keeping a running total of where that was going to be and where it was going to fall. And a couple of years ago when this all started, when this spreadsheet was young, this number right here, we had talked about the 435 Capital Projects Fund was going to transfer an amount. And at the time when we originally looked at this, I figured that was going to be between $125,000 and $130,000. And even in the overall CIP, I have this figured into the 435 fund as part of our cash balances to make sure it all matches. So that's what I was predicting a couple of years ago when we started this whole adventure. Where we're landing on here, our current fund balance is in a deficit, and this is planned for because we have yet to make this fund transfer. So this is where we're currently sitting at. Line items that are now accounted for, which are included in our total. We have the second payment of the splash pad. That's what's left over. The old schoolhouse trail reconstruction right here. That's including the base bid, the alternate, and the section to Sunset Meadows. Miscellaneous expenses. Some things might have come up. Probably won't need to use it, but that's always that little contingency in there. Then we also have the grant amount that we're going to get back, the 2025 Park CIP, that the allocation they're going to get. I think the disc golf course would cost us. And then this is way more than is actually going to be needed. But conversions, well, adding pickleball lines to the outdoor basketball courts in the 2 locations. It won't be 10,000 as we're digging harder into this, but that's the number I have in there. So worst case scenario, we're transferring over 123,000, where I was originally thinking 125 to 130. So when you include those segments in, we're still falling into the originals of where we're at a year and a half, 2 years ago for project scope and balance.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions for either Phil or Nick?
Phil, anything to add? Making your job easy?
Yeah, I think you made it pretty easy on me, Nick. Thanks.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll look for a motion. I'm going to go with the worst case scenario. And if we don't get a motion or a second, I'll just move down to the middle one and then to the base one, and we'll land somewhere. So with that, I'll look for a motion to approve the full bid to Northwest Asphalt, including the base bid, the bid alternate, and that little section going into Sunset Meadows for a total of $95,815.
Motion?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? I just think that extra piece makes sense to do right now and try to get someone back out here. I know we'll have other projects in the future, but once they're located out here, I mean, that's where the biggest savings is going to be, having them set up. So
Then it'll cost more in the future.
yeah,
anyway.
it just makes sense. So with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you to both. Thank you, Phil, for working with them and getting these numbers down a little bit. And thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. With that, consider approval to appoint Lauren Stifter to the Park and Rec Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. We had 3 applicants to the Park and Recreation Commission. The Park Board looked over the applicants. All were very well qualified. All would have done a really great job. And but after looking at them, they felt Lauren Stifter would be the best fit to join us on the Park Board.
Wonderful. I'll look for a motion to approve Lauren Stifter to the Park and Rec Commission.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and that is starting in April, I assume.
Yep.
2024. We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries 4-0. With that, we'll go to City Council reports. Councilmember Helt, anything to report on?
Just started working on the Personnel Committee policy. Going
Perfect.
through with that and refining everything.
That's been 10 years since we've looked at that, so we're going to have some much needed updates to that. Councilmember Fausch, anything to report on?
I have nothing.
Councilmember Jackson?
We covered all of it.
Yeah, and same with me. I was in personnel with Chad, and he covered that. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. We are adjourned.
Now into the third meeting of the day.
I hear you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for stopping in. And certainly stay if you want to stay for the work session. That's up to you.
Really fun.
Ron.
You really added a lot, Phil.
Get out of here. I still can.
Appreciate it. All right, with that, we will call the workshop to order and move right to the one discussion item on the disc golf course project.
Thank you, Mayor. So big shout out to Jason Clark and Andy Buick for spearheading a lot of the work that's been done out for this project. They've been my disc golf course working group. A couple other people have been contributing as well. Don't want to leave them out, but Jason and Andy have been doing the lion's share of the work on this. So here we have the final draft. It's gone through a few iterations as they've been putting it together, proposing a 19-hole disc golf course to fit on the land. Why 19 instead of 18? Because 1, there's a space, and 2, gives a little variation to play. So it's not always quite the same course. So if you want to take a little different approach to it, you certainly can. Provides that on that as well. I've been talking with Mayor Lutheran, keeping them in the loop, and they're excited to see this happen as well. They had a number of questions for me when we had first proposed this, but it sounds like I've answered all of those in good order. And a lot of those have been memorialized in the land use agreement that I put together for their review. Some of it's pretty basic. I drafted this. This has been looked at by the League of Minnesota Cities as well as our city attorney. Mayor Lutheran has approved this, and they did so at their last meeting. A few call-outs in here is that there's no rent or lease payments as part of this. It's a 20-year term agreement that grants the city the ability to construct and maintain a disc golf course on their land. A 6-month provision in here. So if Mayor Lutheran, let's say they want to sell the land to some development of some really awesome commercial this or housing that they want to do, 6 months heads up, and we have to make sure we remove all the equipment and get it out of there and return it back to original condition. Otherwise, the only other real thing in there here is under the maintenance, we will mow it, maintain it as we do all of our city parks. And then they had asked us as because they have somebody who hays the land currently and they get revenue off of that. Since we're going to be maintaining large portions of this as fairways and tee boxes and baskets, the revenue they're getting off of that decreases. So what they had asked for us is, well, a little in return, would the city mind mowing the 2 soccer fields on the south side next to Highway 7 or on Highway 7, 7th Street? If we would mow that and talked with Public Works about it, it's not going to be a lot of extra work for them, maybe a couple extra hours whenever they're out there. We're not going to mow it on some special schedule. It's whenever we're out there maintaining everything else. So it's not going to be a special trip. They'll be out there anyway with the 2 mowers. So it seemed like a fair trade and a good cooperation on that. When we look at costs for the disc golf course, for the Innova Disc Catcher Pro 28s, we did have a professional from Innova who is a retired professional disc golf course, or a professional disc golfer, get my terminology right. They did take a look at our course, helped with some refinements on this. And Jason and Andy are recommending this basket. It's a very good one for having out there. So we have costs associated with that for 19 of those. And then we do have concrete quotes. The low one, we received 2, and the low one out of there, $12,777. Signage, I don't have final costs on that yet. We're putting it together, but I doubt it's going to be more than that for signage. So grand total, we're looking at about $26,000 for the disc golf course. The park board talked about whole sponsorships, and the 2 models they're looking at is a one-time donation of $1,000 to go towards the capital cost, or if you want to do something more ongoing, $250 a year in perpetuity or until the business closes or what have you. So if it's something they want to continue to support over time, they certainly can choose that. Or if it's just one time they want to do, you can choose that route as well. Assuming we have a mix of that, looking at potential of $17,000 in revenue on that, which gives a grand total of the project around that $9,000 mark. Should we sell?
Do we have any whole sponsorship yet?
Not yet. We haven't formally done anything with it yet.
And we talked about offering it to city businesses first, Mayor.
Yep.
I think you'll get some. I don't know that you'll get 17.
I think we'll
Whatever.
I think we'll have more than we think.
Really?
If they do a sponsorship, is their name on a hole,
Mhm.
Yep.
like on the sign?
On a
Okay.
plaque.
Yep. So as you approach the throwing area, you have your whole layout sign. This is the shape of the pin and the hole into the pin, the course. And then either below it or above it, we would have
Who's sponsored?
do the sponsorship there.
If this happens to take off, is Mayor Lutheran okay with parking?
Parking won't be an issue.
Well, hole 1's going to be way.
Well, I know it's going to be
you're
by
not gonna wanna
Fieldstone,
walk
but
all the way.
but,
Assume we just park in Fieldstone, right?
Yeah. So parking,
I mean, on the road there.
Then you
I just
add
don't want to cause,
parking will all be up here.
okay?
There's no reason for anybody parked down here, walk all the way up here to start, finish here, and then walk all the way back.
Okay.
Fieldstone Parkway is 44 feet back of curb to back of curb, so it accommodates parallel parking on both sides along with 2 lanes.
Okay.
And unless it's a tournament or something else, it's not like there's going to be 20 cars at any given.
I know, I'm just trying to think ahead if if it does become something
best
popular.
thing.
If
In
Andy
town.
brings all his friends, I don't know.
Plenty of spots up here for
Okay.
everybody to park at.
Okay,
There should be no reason they'd be parking down there.
okay.
So I just have a couple comments I'll make, and typically I don't make comment. You know, I appreciate all the work that the Park and Rec Committee does, and I don't want to discourage that work, you know, but I think after seeing everything that went in, all the money into the pavilion and the splash pad, I would have liked maybe a step back, maybe to reset, relook at, we have vision boards of what we wanted all our parks to look like, make sure we're aligned. But before this, I'd rather see some of our other stuff get finished. We have unfinished stuff that's sitting that we haven't done, and now we're jumping ahead, you know, to something new. And by unfinished, I mean the parking lot in the Hidden Creek Park, boards for the ice rink. What was the other? Oh, we were still going to expand more on the skate park and get more equipment. I feel now also we're jumping into something, and I don't know if we put to bed the dog park that had come up a couple years ago. The what was the other one? There was one other item, archery. You know, and now we're moving on to another. I just think a reset would have been nice. I just think at this time I'd like to see some of the other stuff get finished versus spending the money and not doing anything with it. So that's kind of where I stand. And again, I'm not here to discourage the work that's been put into this, but
Well, I know we
we
discussed
have
that,
unfinished business still.
we discussed that parking lot with a road project because they'd be here in like 2030, 2030-ish. So I think there's a lot of that stuff on the docket, and if we can get that kind of whole funding, I'm not opposed to $9,000 to bring something else to mayor, if we can get that kind of sponsorship. But that's just my opinion.
But that's an if. So do we wait and get the sponsorship and then move forward? You know,
That's what I
some of
would
the-
say.
Some of the unknowns.
I'd reach
but-
out and see if people are willing to sponsor. before
And
we
again,
move
I want to make it
forward.
clear, I support the project. I'm not against the project. I just think
Right.
a reset and our vision boards that I don't know when the last time those even got looked at, where we had maps of all the parks and kind of where we were going to start placing things, future items. And that was the whole intent of that, I think, for future councils to move forward and we're planning versus something new. So I don't not support disc golf. But my other comment would be, and I haven't disc golfed in 30 years, but it seems, I mean, is the terrain, shouldn't it be more like through some woods, some trees, this is just an open field. Is that typical for golf, for disc golf?
There's no other good location.
There's not real aesthetics to this. I mean, is it going to be an interesting course or, you know, versus just pretty much the same thing hole to hole?
It's a little more hilly than the Watertown one,
Okay, yeah.
but I've never played on the Watertown one. I just noticed that they got baskets in the soccer
Yep.
fields.
And I've seen those too, and I've meant to stop and walk through that one, but that's my other comment. But again, I'm not getting too hung up, but I'd like to see other things get finished first.
To your comment, I'd like to see those vision boards being new in the council. I guess I wasn't aware. of
They're somewhere,
other-
unless they've gotten thrown for some reason but they're around. We've gone through them for years. I'm willing to bet, 15 years ago we started those. Just to get somebody. So that's kind of where I'm at now. If it moves forward, do you do scorecards and pencils?
Typically, there's now apps for that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Just pull out your phone, you'd have a disc golfers.
Okay. So will this get put on those apps, or how does that?
Yep.
We notify someone and say, hey, we have a new course, here it is, and they come out and GPS it and.
Yep.
Perfect.
We put
Okay.
it up there. Jason and Andy talked about that
Yeah.
very early
Yeah.
on. Encourage people to download the app, and there's multiple apps you can use to keep track and scorecard. And
Good. All right. Those are my only comments. So I guess at this time, I don't know if I support it today.
What parking lot were you talking about?
West is,
Is it the meadow?
the
Yes.
pa-
So
yeah,
that's what
Meadow
I
Park.
want.
Where
yeah.
would they be putting it?
So if you go, where are we?
Zoom in this.
Oh,
Casey's
okay.
is here.
So
I'm getting
there's
there.
an easement between
Yep.
these houses.
Okay,
Then it would go through there.
It would go through there.
okay. And that's where the skate park is too, yes.
Correct. Yeah. So those are just my comments. I wouldn't mind seeing some of, at least maybe half of them maybe get sponsored.
How hard is it to get sponsorships when it's not even approved though? Is my question. Are people
Well,
gonna
we
be
could-
like, oh, well, maybe if you get it approved, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we could get the okay. I wouldn't collect their money yet. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, we want to do it.
So you
We're
just
on
want an
board.
idea. of
Yeah,
what's out
express
there.
interest.
I'd like to
at
get
least in
some.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so easier than you think. I go out to the businesses, hey, we're looking at this, here's what it'll be, here's sponsorship will look like.
Mhm.
Would
You
be
willing to put-
interested, yeah.
You willing to,
Right, right.
assuming we go through with it, you willing to?
Right.
We go to Knuckleheads Health.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you could have, bring in your scorecard and blah, 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 and get a free drink or, who knows? It could be some
Yeah.
sort of
Mhm.
Incentive for them
incentive for
too.
them, yeah, to draw them in.
Well, it was one of the early questions too, when I came in is, how popular is this? Because personally, I've never played it.
I
I've seen the one
haven't
at Crown, driven by it.
Mhm.
It seems like there's people out there, and when we talked about it, or when the Parks Board talked about it, it seemed like there's a big draw to it right now. And it could potentially draw in people into Mayor that have never been to Mayor, which might, I don't know, bring revenue to the city. I mean, I don't know to what degree, but
Pickleball and disc golf are the number 1 and number 2 recreational sports out there. That's long and short of what I've got on the disc golf course.
Any other questions on it? Anything more to share, Nick?
No, that's all I have.
All right, then. And I don't have anything else, so I think with that, we adjourn.
Good.
Perfect.
done.
I don't argue with that.
Done and done.
Chad's done with me.
Haley's probably still delivering.